Thursday, May 21st at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. This is Alice Aspen March, who's going to talk about her last 30 years, believe it or not, of learning about, writing about, researching about, and talking about attention from a different perspective. I have to tell you, I really didn't know anything about attention other than it was a word I used all the time. You know, give me your attention. Is he paying attention? I was a teacher for a while, so I used it a lot. But I was attention sale on a bulletin board. It's a mainstream word, and it came. I have to give you the backstory because it's really very important. I have 3 sons, and my youngest was born just about the time my father passed away, and I was really left with my mother. I'm an only child, and I didn't quite know what to do. I had these 2 other kids who were almost in high school, and I had to hire a nanny because my mother needed a lot of attention. And so I did. And the nanny was from South America and wanted to learn how to speak English. So she sat in front of the television set a lot with my son, Jonathan, who at that time was about 3 years old. So he sat with her. Believe it or not, he started speaking English fast with a Spanish accent. At that time, nobody was talking about the addictive quality of television. And that's what it is, actually. All our screens, I'm here to tell you, they are designed with a quality of being addictive because they want people to watch. Bear that in mind. Anyway, fast forward, Jonathan was a really good kid, and I didn't realize how much he was watching television because I did spend some really good time with him, and I had placed him in the best preschool that you could go to, and he was so good that he was a visitor, quotes, visitor. They would, if they had another room where there was an empty spot for lunch, they would send him to be a visitor because he was such a good kid. So we will fast forward. He is now in kindergarten. And then he's in 1st grade and 2nd grade and 3rd grade. And he is put in a gifted room. In other words, the kids who are mostly gifted, which was very good because he turned out to be bright like his brothers. And then when he got to be about, he had a best friend. He had brown hair and his best friend had blonde hair, and they looked like 2 puppies. You would see the brown hair and the blonde hair walking down the street, and you know they were just connected. They were the same age. I think they were 5 when they met. And Jonathan spent a lot of time with Smith because he was, for all intents and purposes, an only child like I was, because his brothers one was 10 years older and one was 7 years older. And when he was about 12, Jonathan, I started to send him to camp in Upper New York, in Upper California, near the mountains. Because when I was his age, when I was 11 and 10, I went to camp and I loved it. I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. So I went with all my parents' children's friends. Does that make sense? Parents, children's friends. Yeah. And I can't tell you, it was wonderful. It was 2 months in Wisconsin. And I learned to swim, and I was a diver. I was a high diver, and I was a boater, and I was everything. And I was happy being away from home. There's a real pressure that I felt always being an only child because I went from one to the other. This is all the backstory. Anyway, Jonathan is now 13 years old. He's in middle school, and I see that he's not doing much homework. it disturbed me. So I went to school and I said, my son Jonathan was in a gifted class in elementary school, and I don't think he's in the same kind of class here because he's not doing any work at all. So the teacher went into his closet and went through all these piles of stuff and looked up and he said, you're right. You're right. You're right. He's in the wrong class. So I said, well, I really would like to put him in the right class. And Jonathan, no, Mama, please, no, I've got friends. Well, and I understood this because when Jonathan came back, I want you to be able to follow this story, but I am jumping around a little. When Jonathan came back from camp, he and his best friend Smith were no longer tight because Smith had to find other friends and play with other kids while Jonathan was away. I think this was a trauma for Jonathan because when he left, there was a best friend, and when he came back, there wasn't. So when he went into the 7th grade and had friends, this was very, very important, and he didn't want to leave. And so I said, okay. Well, the 7th grade at that time, when it wasn't a gifted class, was full of drug takers. And Jonathan got in with a group who smoked pot and did a few other things. And I didn't know this because I had never done anything, and my older kids had not either. So when I discovered this, I was really terrified, because I thought I could lose him. He was 13 years old in about 1969. And I said, I've got to find out what my role was in what I determined was dysfunctional behavior. I had a 13-year-old who was acting out. I didn't know that was the word, but he was really he was traumatized by not having a best friend anymore. Anyway, I found out that, as I said, he was doing a lot of pot smoking, and I didn't know that he was doing mushrooms at that point. Maybe he wasn't. It was beyond. Anyway, I started on a quest to find out what my role was this kind of dysfunction, because I did not know. I had another boyfriend at that time, and he said, Alice, and I was also the executive director of a nonprofit called FACT, F-A-C-T, Focusing Awareness on Children and Television. When I realized that he was really addicted to television, when I watched it with my older sons, I would sit there and watch it with them. So it was a joint activity, but I didn't watch so much with Jonathan. And my television watching was very seldom because I was so offended by the commercials. I would pick a good English drama and I'd be sitting and I was involved, and all of a sudden somebody would come by and say, you got to have this toilet paper, it's softer. Or these toys will really give you more friends. And it's not true. The television was lying to us, and if we let our kids watch it, it meant that we were lying to our kids. So back to my boyfriend, he said, you got to go with me to UCLA. They've got a course I think you'll like very much, and the professor will like you and you'll like him. The name of the course was Obstacles to Intimacy, which I thought was a provocative title. And I have notes here. I have to use them because I don't want to miss anything. And these are the notes that I'm using for I'm writing another book. I have 2 books out now, but I'm writing a very important book. My first book was a long time ago called Attention, It's the Problem, It's the Solution. And my next one is Attention, Secrets for Making It Through College and Beyond. And I'm not a very good salesman. I've gotten wonderful testimonials about both books, but I don't sell them too much. This is my fault. Anyway, I've lost what I'm looking for, which is not a great thing. That's what's going on. I'm like squirrely. I've been in my house for 11 weeks. How can I keep losing very important stuff in my apartment? Well, forget that one. Anyway, he was talking about Harry Harlow. Back to UCLA and back to the professor. He was talking about Harry Harlow, who did some research in the 1920s with monkeys. Wanted to see what would happen if he took these monkeys away from their parents, mothers particularly, put them in a cage with two wire monkeys. One had terry cloth on it, and the other one had baby bottles. And so that's where the baby monkeys lived. And they would cling to the terry cloth monkey all the time, except when they were hungry, and then they'd go over to the milk bottle monkey. And pretty soon, these monkeys became socially apart. They didn't know what to do with themselves because they had nobody to talk to. And they withdrew. And then they got very depressed. And the last thing he said was, when they didn't get the kind of attention they needed, they became socially dysfunctional and died. 1929. And I don't think I really registered that word because it was a common word. When they don't get the kind of attention they need, they become socially withdrawn and die. Now, there was another man doing also work at this time who discovered the same thing. Do you know, now here's where I jump around, so please follow me. The United States stopped doing this kind of work in 1944 with children. Can you believe it? They had two groups. One was getting lots of attention. They were being looked at. They were being included. They were being touched. All good kinds of attention because this was the program. And the other group was not getting no attention whatsoever. And when that group started to really have orphans or young infants die from lack of attention, they stopped the experiment, 1944. Anyway, so here I am, still running this nonprofit organization, which gave me an opportunity to keep Mr. Rogers on the air and to learn for the first time. I don't think we talked about needs then. At least we didn't talk about them in my family, and I don't remember talking about it at all until I went to therapy. And the man asked me, and this was when I was, in my 40s. The doctor was fabulous. I just went for psychological whatever. He said, Alice, what do you need? I didn't even understand the question. What do I need? Well, it turned out that I didn't have any needs because I had all my mother's needs. That's the way it worked. But anyway, I discovered a lot of things about kids that I didn't know when I was executive director. And I did it because I thought it would be a way for me to discover the role I played in my son's dysfunction because he was a television addict. Nobody was doing anything like this. This was in the late 70s. So about 2 weeks after I'm in the class, I have an epiphany. The first epiphany and the last epiphany I've ever had. Right over my head, in big letters, dimensional letters, spelling out attention. So while I had been doing a lot of research because I was on my quest to find out what role I played, I didn't really have a focus because I didn't know really what I'd done. So I didn't know how to look for it. So I just went in the back of about 70 books because I was collecting books while I was the executive director. I was shocked. The word attention was never in the back of the books except for ADD, which is attention deficit disorder, and ADHD, which is attention disorders. Same thing anyway. And maybe sometimes with Eastern philosophy, they talked about attention and mindfulness. Okay, so the research that I was doing didn't yield anything for me, but the epiphany did, because it focused me more on that word. And I don't know how, I don't know why I do this. I don't know how I was chosen to do this, because I think this work is a gift to not only me, but to everybody who hears me. And I say that humbly, because it changes people's lives. But anyway, I found a book that I had by Dr. Bernard Siegel called Love, Medicine, and Miracles. And I didn't read everything in the books. I told you I went to the back. I went to the index. He didn't have the word attention. So I'm just thumbing through the book. And I see it, I stop. I don't know why I stopped. Maybe I got a guide up there who's just coming down and saying, putting his hand on mine, and I stopped. And this is what I encountered. It was a late Friday afternoon. And a lady doctor was talking to her patient upon whom she was going to do surgery for a tumor on the following Tuesday. They were hanging out. And he was the patient, and she said to him, I want you to come back in on Monday and have another x-ray, because I want to be totally up to date on the size of your tumor and where it is. And he said, okay, I'll do that. And on Monday he came in, he had the x-ray, he was sitting waiting for her. I need some water. And she came in and she said, well, I am very happy you did that. It was a must. And he said, why? She said, because I got the information I wanted. And she said, I don't know why, but your tumor has shrunk and it's moved in a better position for the operation. This was shocking. And he said, well, I might know why. And she said, why? Why do you know why? When I was here with you on Friday afternoon and we were hanging out, I felt very safe with you. I felt you really cared about me and I was going to be okay. And I thought, that's what attention is. It was like a bolt. I never thought of that before. I felt safe. I felt I was going to be okay, and you really cared about me. So from that point on, I was looking at research that presented that. And there is so much. There is so much. You can't believe it. There's even a comparatively new thing on Facebook about a little girl who has had autism, and her mother went to school to see how she was doing, and the teacher said, she really can't stay here. She's an autistic child who is not up to snuff in the class she's on, and we would suggest that you put her in another class where there are more of this kind of student. And her mother decided, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do more stuff with her. So she got a tutor, and the tutor worked with her and the little girl, and the mother worked with the little girl. And all of a sudden one day the tutor said to this mother, your daughter is beginning to really focus. She's changing. And needless to say, mother was very excited. Anyway, to make a long story even longer, or a short story longer, this little girl is now a graduate of a college, like either Oxford or Cambridge or one of them, and she's no longer an autistic child because she got the kind of attention she needed. She got it from the mentor, and she got it from her mother. I have acres and acres of research about everybody who gets attention that they need and how they thrive. That's the bottom line. Now let's take this word attention and my 30 years of working on this. I will start at the end because no matter where I go, and I've gone around the world with this, and no matter what groups I talk to, and I've talked to a bunch, it can be business groups, it can be CEOs, it can be lawyers, physical fitness, spas. Let me see what else I've been. The Rotary, it adhered to their principles. Any group, parenting, parenting, of course, religious organizations, schools, kids. The last thing they say to me when I'm ready to leave, every time, how come we haven't learned this before? Or how come we never heard this before? I want you to know. I've been told that my work is profound, that every parent, CEO, leader, healer, whatever, should listen to me, a teacher. I'm trying to say things that will sink in so you will remember. Or maybe you need a piece of paper because I'm going to ask you some very provocative questions and I'd like some answers, and I think it will give you a new sense of exactly what I'm talking about. I'm also going to tell you that if I hadn't found this, if I hadn't discovered my work, I think I would be dead, because my parents' programming did not work for me. It didn't work for them. It didn't work for their parents. And it sure didn't work for me. Did anybody, as you were growing up, ever ask you, what kind of attention would you like from me? You know what people do when I ask them that question when I walk in the room? And I ask them, hands go up, and then they laugh. Because nobody talked about this. I suggest now that people stop blaming their parents, because their parents never got this either, so they don't know the power of attention, and nobody asked them that question. Now let me tell you about this word. Attention is a dimension, because you can see attention. I hope this all makes sense. You could go in the grocery store and watch a mother yank a kid by the arm because it's nagging for attention. It wants something, wants this cereal, and the mother isn't in any condition to give it to her or to pay attention to her or to sort of kneel down when you've got little kids to answer that question because she's annoyed at something else. But yes, you can see attention all the time. You can see attention when everybody's sitting at a dinner table or a restaurant and everybody's got their cell phones out and nobody's looking at each other. They're not having any conversations. You're seeing attention. You can feel attention because attention is an energy. I got my OneNote. I'm going to tell you what attention is. It's an energy that is released by means of a look, a touch, words, or deeds from one person to another, resulting in a feeling or a behavior. The kind of attention we get is the root cause of our feelings and our behavior. That's the bottom line. And when you don't get the kind of attention you need it so badly that you have to act out. And that's exactly the culture we're in. Well, and how do people act out? Oh my God. They kill for it. They die for it. They color their hair green for it. They eat for it. They have diseases for it, believe it or not. They have physical symptoms for it. How about anorexia? They get a lot of attention for that. Going back to, so far we know we can feel it. We can see it. We can sense it. You can sense a person. You know that there are people you never want to talk to. You don't even want to be near them because you're feeling something off their bodies. You can feel a person coming up behind you that you're saying to yourself, I don't like how I feel. That is an intuitive hit, but it's something to pay attention to. You can taste it. You can taste a special kind of attention when a person has spent a special kind of cooking. Let me see. So we got feel it, sense it, see it. You can smell it. You can smell somebody loading themselves with perfume or not. And you know somebody's either smelling terrible or smelling very nice, but you're choking because they got so much on. In other words, they're obsessed with, this is one of their ways to get attention, is to smell good. I think I should read this again. It's an energy, first of all, that is released by means of a look, a touch, or deeds from one person to another, resulting in a feeling. And a feeling. That's pretty big, isn't it? That changes your life. You'll never be the same, I hope, after this hour. And I tell you, personally, it's made such a difference in my life because I had to really reparent myself. My father was a prestigious ophthalmologist, but he didn't believe in being a teenager. He didn't believe in adolescence. That was him, because I guess he never had one. So I was never allowed to be one, and that played a role in my life. I'm going to let you in on a secret. Being inside my apartment for 11 weeks has forced me to do some more inner work, because it's always related to what I'm talking about. And I became a teenager. And I know I'm a teenager. I'm procrastinating. I'm not showing up when I should show up sometimes. It's so funny because I just laugh at myself. And it's going to end soon because I hope this is going to end. But it is necessary. That's a part of developing from childhood into adulthood. We need our kids to be teenagers. But if we weren't one, we don't understand it. And you know what? If you don't today sit down and write a list of your needs, which are your core, the core of yourself is composed of your needs. What do you need from people? People don't know, and you expect them to know. What happens when you expect people to know what you need and they don't give it to you? I know what happens. You leave. You withdraw. You don't tell them what you need because you haven't written it down. You don't know. That's not for all of you, just for some of you. I didn't know. It cost me a lot of time because I always chose the wrong person to marry. Because I never saw my parents being needful. I got to take water. Very sad. I wish I could have a long conversation with my mom and dad today because I have so much more empathy for them. They sure didn't know what they needed. My dad, the doctor, would not let my mother work. You know, when you're married to a doctor, that's what your job is. And she was a teacher, and she was also a concert pianist, so she never played the piano. We had no music in our house. They took me to musicals, thank goodness, but we had no music. I'm sort of, what do you call it? Deprived. I am a deprived person. But it's up to me now to change that. Because the more you change being deprived of what you want and need, the more empowered you become. And then you understand what the attention factor is all about. You can't understand it if you haven't experienced it. if you have never given yourself what you need because you need it, and you don't know that your child needs something that's different than yours. Most children do not need the same things that their parents need. Fathers who are jocks may have an artistic son. That's a disaster from the beginning. Because the father wants his son to play soccer or football or whatever, and the child doesn't want to play football. He wants crayons and a painting set and an easel like I've got back there, and he wants to paint. You know, there's a program out called, what is it called? Linguistic Program. It talks about the fact, you see, usually if I'm talking to people and I can see them, they jump in and give me the word. And I know there are people out there, but I can't get some help. I'm doing it all myself. All I see is me. Let's all laugh a lot. It's very healing. And also, let's all cry a lot. Never miss an opportunity to cry because it releases the toxic in your body. That's been researched and documented. As a matter of fact, everything I talk about, except personally, has been researched and documented. And you can call me up and ask me where to find it if you want. People ask me, well, where's your history? Where's you got all this? I said, come in my library. Just look at my books. Child Machine. I mean, it's unbelievable. Anyway, here we are. So the three things that are talked about and historically documented from neo-linguistic programming are, we all come in and we're either born to be visible, which I am, or kinesthetic, which athletes are, or auditory, which musicians are. That is how we do our lives. For instance, if you tell me something in visual terms, I will usually never forget it. Because if you walk in my apartment, you can see I am very visual. I have lots of wonderful pictures, lots of visual things, and I also have wonderful windows. I see half of New York out here because I could never live in a place that didn't have windows. The first thing I do when I walk in somewhere is look out the window. And my ex-husband never looked out the window at all. Probably why he's my ex-husband. Anyway, so that's a tip. And I did work with some people in Los Angeles, where I lived for 45 years, who were doing so much research on this that the executive director of this nonprofit could tell by looking at a child, an infant, what that child was, how they were, just how they looked, how they touched, how they talked. And children, well, infants don't talk, but children will tell you what they are. You got to listen for it. I see what you mean, Mom, Dad. I see what you mean. Or Mom, I hear you. Or I get it. That's a physical word, I get it. And there's the ones who can't sit still in class in school, in an elementary school. They cannot sit still because they were born that way. And I want to tell you some amazing discovery that when they extend the recess, these kids, their behavior is different when they come back from recess. So they've given them what they need. Whoa. I wish you were here to ask me some questions. So we now know what attention really is. It's a dimensional energy because you can see it and you can taste it and you can smell it and you can, what else did I say? I personally think that it's our seventh sense because I live it. I sense it. I see people sitting at a table. I can sense their energy between them. You can see it, but I can sense it. And you know, the reason I'm sort of crazy right now, squirrely, that's a good word, is because I I see what's happening to our country. And the one thing that I cannot stand is man's inhumanity to man. That I've always been that way. And that's what is happening. Man's inhumanity to man. And what is happening disturbs me almost more than having to stay home. Because I know what's happening. I mean, I really know what's happening. For better or for worse. Anyway, let me tell you some stories. I collect stories. I started years ago. I call them cringeables. You know how somebody hits you in the stomach, go like this. I asked a 60-year-old woman who lived in my building in Los Angeles. I only moved to New York 10 and a half years ago. Anyway, back to the lady in my apartment. I said, do you have any stories for me that your mother might have told you? Oh my God, she said, I can't forget it. She said to me once, if I'd known what you were going to look like, I never would have married your father. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that? At 60, she's still feeling it. I'm never going to have a birthday party because when I was little, my mother never asked me what kind of cake I wanted, and she made her favorite cake, of course, which was coconut cream, which I can't stand and never will eat. And you know that people all over the world are now having birthday parties because of me. I insist that they have birthday parties because that's the day they were born and they've got to honor themselves. That's part of self-care, to feel good about your birth. Anyway, a lady and her mother were sitting in front of the Christmas tree. And the child's, they're ladies, they're not kids anymore. A girl was sitting with her mother in front of the Christmas tree. Her birthday was December 27th. And her mother said to her, did you see all the presents you got under the tree? And she said, yeah. And she said, too many there. I'm going to take some out and put them in my closet for your birthday. That little girl never forgot that. Because it didn't happen to her siblings. That could have been handled so differently. I can't even stand thinking of it. I was a speaker for a week every year at Rancho La Puerta, which is a wonderful, wonderful spa in Tecate, Mexico. I loved it. And of course, first I talked about television, and then I talked about the attention factor. Hey, do you want to know what the attention factor means? The attention factor is a place in our bodies where we feel good or bad attention. That's all there is. There isn't any in between. The kind of attention we good is either good or bad. And boy, when it's bad, you don't feel good. You want to get out of there. Well, there's another way to handle that. Like, that doesn't feel good to me. I have to take a deep breath. I'd like to talk about what you just said to me. Do you want to know why it doesn't feel good to me? Now make up your own. I'm going to throw a lot at you, and it's probably not 1, 2, 3, 4, because I don't think like that. But anyway, don't expect people will know how you feel or what you want if you don't tell them. I've got to tell you something because I met this lady, and that's all she talks about is the dimensions of attention. And I just felt what you said, and it didn't feel good. And I want to talk about that. You can reframe any memory, and I think a lot of people are saying, don't go back, go forward. Well, I really feel that you have to go back to go forward because the back is part of your forward. Now, I want to tell you, back to Rancho La Puerta. I started talking about this, and as one man said, who was the president of an art school in Pennsylvania, to me, Alice, I've never seen anybody galvanize a room like you. Good, thank you very much. A daughter raised her hand, and she said, my father was never home for my birthday. He was always out with the men hunting, and her mother got, no, that's not true. He was always home for your birthday. And they fought right in the room. And the girl, who was probably in her 30s or 40s, said, Mom, whose birthday was it? Wonderful question, isn't it? Well, I got a couple of stories I want to tell you that have landed. I was a daughter, an only child, who they focused on because they needed me. They needed me to come between. I was a go-between, but I was a lot of other things. I didn't know this until I was in therapy, really, but I knew it because I felt something was out. So my father would say, please go down and get your mother out of the basement where she's sewing. I want to go play bridge. They fought about bridge. They always told me that. My mother once said, you're so lucky not to be a bridge player because you have friends. That was interesting. But anyway, so I come home from, what's it called, when you learn to build things. We were either allowed to go to home ec or the other one that is manual training. I wanted to go to manual training because I wanted to build things and create things. And so I did. I went to manual training and I loved it. And I came home one day and I came home with a cord and a plug. And I said, Dad, I've got something to show you. And he said, okay. And I said, I learned how to put a cord and a plug so the lights go on. And this is what he said. What do you have to know that for? And I want to tell you about attention. I was so excited and I had so much energy coming home from manual training that I was alive and energetic. And my father's attention remark absolutely sliced right through that. So for a long time, that's not what I wanted from my dad, believe me. I didn't do anything. I still have trouble with the computer because it's in our cells. That kind of attention goes into our cells. And I personally think that we have to reframe it by going inside and going into that place and feel how you felt and putting new words into your father's mouth. Oh my God, I'm so proud of you. You'll have to start fixing stuff around. I wish I knew how to do that. That was the problem. Not only he didn't know how to do any manual anything, but he didn't want his daughter to learn how. Okay? Now I'll give you one of my mother's. God, it's just, but today I'm learning. I know why I don't know how. And I fixed something this morning. I can't remember. Oh, I could not get the top unscrewed from something. And last night I went to bed and I said, oh my God, I'm going to have to call the concierge. And then I said, phooey on that. I'm going to run some hot water and see if it'll loosen up. And it did, and I took the top off. And I felt really good. I don't need to call somebody else. And I'm doing that lots. But that empowers me because I can give that kind of attention to myself. And I know what I'm doing. And when you know how it affects you, then you start giving attention to others. You know, we're all walking around with a hole in our head, and that's where we want the attention poured in. Poured in. I left I'm part of a group, and that's why I'm on this Zoom. That is a conference with very high achieving people. and they all have a lot of initials after their name. I do not. I have an AB from the University of, or BA from the University of Michigan. I've taken postdoc courses. I've taken lots of research. I've done lots. If I had decided that I was going to get a PhD, which I decided I wasn't going to do, I could have gotten one from the amount of research I've done. But anyway, so you always have to announce who you are when you for the weekend. I'm Alice Aspen March, and I do this. And so the last time I was there, I got up and I said, I'm Alice Aspen March. I'm a speaker and a writer. And I work with people in this room, because a lot of people were in the same room I was at. We were all at the same panel. We were all on the same panel. And I saw the wife of the founder, who was all over the place during the weekend, going like this. And can you imagine my getting that kind of validation at that point, when I went on to say, I used to be very intimidated. But when I left, when it was time to go, two women walked up to me. I had never seen them before. And I talked to everybody, and I'm on a panel, and I'm a presenter, and they make everybody visible. That's very important. That's one of the things. Oh, I haven't even done that. Okay. Anyway, two women came up to me separately, and they said, don't stop doing what you're doing, Alice. My husband asked me, he said to me, am I giving you the right kind of attention? Two separate women. Can you imagine, am I giving you the right kind of attention? I just was overjoyed, because lives change. I've had testimonials that say, you saved my child's life, you saved our family. A group of CEOs were so excited, and one of them went home and changed his relationship with his adult son, and it's changed, and he's feeling so much more powerful. My son, the son I went to work on, told me I saved his life, and someday he'd like to do my work, and he does. He does my work, because he's in Bangkok teaching English, and his group of teachers had to give a workshop, and his workshop was on attention. And they clapped when it was over. And he wrote me. Those are the perks. Okay, now I want to talk about, I haven't told you how you give somebody else the kind of attention they need. Well, the first place is you ask them, what kind of attention do you need? Now, I don't know how many of you know the newsletter Bottom Line Personal, which is for business people, insurance business, doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs. It's a magazine that has experts. I'm called an expert for parenting. I gotta see, my nose is gonna itch. Maybe that's something. I forget what happens when you're going to kiss somebody or something. Well, anyway, I'm going to read you something, because I don't want to forget anything. What is the attention factor? I've told you it's a place in my body where I feel the kind of attention I'm getting, and it's either bad or good. So it is the name of my work, which serves to create a consciousness where you see life differently. Your kids want attention, the chef wants attention, the waiter wants attention. Okay, I gotta tell you two stories. Then we'll go back to my list. Here's when you write, or you can write to me and I'll send it to you. It has many facets, like a diamond. It's also something that lives in us, all of us, all the time. It doesn't matter how young you are, how old, where you come from, how rich or how poor, fat or thin, or what color you are. It's living inside you. It's your primary need because it's a core need. We're born with it. You know, that's all the children need is attention, and it lives with us forever. Everybody's attention factor is different. And one of the things you can find out is asking them, what kind of attention would you like from me? But make it so that it's not demanding, it's not judgmental. You can blame me, say, I heard this talk by this lady and she spent 30 years talking about it. She knew nothing about it when she started, or whatever. It serves as an internal measuring device, telling us what we're getting or not getting. And I've already told you the kind of attention we get is the root cause of our feelings and our behavior. Root cause. We feel it when we get the attention. We feel it when attention is taken away. We also feel it when we give attention, especially good attention, because it makes us feel that we're giving what people need. Our attention factor is synonymous with our time, our energy, our being present, our including them, our touching them nicely, our listening to them. Can you imagine when somebody feels that they're getting the kind of attention they want? They feel, well, I must be valuable. He's listening to me. Because when we don't listen, they get that. Well, he's not listening to me. I must not be important enough. You want me to say that again? Listening is vital. People feel when they're being listened to. It's important to include people. Do you remember when you were in elementary school, and I don't know if this happened to you, but you were not chosen to be on a team? People, one of my stories is a kid who was a teenager was put at the child's table for Thanksgiving, didn't feel grown up, and never went back to have Thanksgiving with his family. He heard me. Well, maybe now he's saying, you know how bad he felt, how badly he felt when he was put with the kids at the kids' table? He felt like he wasn't honored. Can you imagine how he would have felt if they honored him by putting him at the adult table? Okay. Once you own your own attention factor, you never lose it. You never lose it. And while it's simple to use sometimes, it's also very complex. I knew that my ex-son-in-law made everybody coffee drinks when they were over. I don't drink coffee. So I decided, I don't drink dairy, that's what it is, and coffee. I decided one day as we were going over there that I would buy a box of rice milk and take it over there and tell him he could make me some decaf with the rice milk. First of all, he was so excited that I brought the rice milk. He'd never tasted it. And when he made my drink, he tasted it and he said, Alice, this is really good, with a smile on his face. That's how you know when you give somebody the kind of attention they want. They smile. Their bodies can't help it. It's just a natural physical phenomenon. Okay. Attention is multidimensional. And what it does is multidimensional. So when you listen to somebody, when you include them, when you touch them nicely, when you hug them, you know, we need 14 hugs a day to keep our immune system up. You can talk to them about this. I heard this I discovered this. Look it up and talk to a little person. You know, I really have to hug you more because it advances your immune system, and I like hugging you anyway. So please tell me if I'm doing it too much and how it feels. Talk to kids about their feelings. It is invisible and visible at the same time. That's a cutie, isn't it? Visible and invisible at the same time. Okay. It improves communication skills. It prevents, heals, or resolves family breakdowns. I'm a coach. I've coached. I've gotten families healed to heal. Creates better relationships with your friends, your partners, employees, and yourself. It reduces stress. It increases productivity in the workplace and creativity. And it expands your mind-body creation. And I've been asked for years, what's the difference between love and attention? So I've had to think that. Think about that. And my definition of love, and the only definition I can come up with, is positive attention in action. Because people feel loved or unloved. People will not feel loved if they don't feel, wait a minute, they won't feel loved if they don't feel it from you when they are with you, when they feel it. They have to feel loved. Now, this is my big question. How do you feel loved? How do you feel loved? What are your needs for attention? At least 3. A lady I know told me once at the ranch that her husband finally just realized she really loves books. So he stops on his way home and he'll buy her a new book. She loves that. She loves that. I have to tell you, I got to go back to how I show strangers that I care about them. I was having lunch at a high cafe table next to a mother, a grandmother, and an aunt, and a little boy. And the adults were so busy talking that the little boy was crawling around the floor. And he came by my table, and he had a little airplane on his shoulder. And I looked at him and I said, I like your airplane. And then the 3 adults decided if a total stranger was talking to their relative, their son, their grandson, and their nephew, they better go. So that's when he came by my room, by my table, and I said, I really like your airplane. In other words, I made him visible. That's another thing we got to do, along with attention. Make them visible. People need to be visible because when they're invisible, it doesn't feel good. Well, I see that our time is up. So, come call me, come to my workshops, call me as a coach, whatever. I'm alive and well, and have a wonderful day, and give yourself some attention first and others second.